those are the institution that I am representing today here. And as I mentioned, I told you that I'm passionate about off-grid power system. And can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see.
Okay. This is the reason why I am passionate about off-grid power system. This is what is an off-grid power system is. In this case, it's a mini grid, and it's a containerized solution. This is about a 30 kilowatt system, and it's a device that generates power and store it in a storage system, and it's able to deliver power almost everywhere. The reason why I like this very much is because of the use that it's made most of the time with this application. So it's energy at the service of human development. So electrical energy activate several other positive things that brings a human development, and this is exactly what triggered my passion. I would like to show you this quickly, this map of the world. You see, if you look at it, you see in yellow, you have areas of the world where the access to energy is very high, and the blue one is where the access to energy is very, very low. So as you can see, sub-Saharan Africa is one of the areas where there is a huge lack of access to energy. And this is the reason why most of the market of rural electrification is happening there. Most of the companies that are building this kind of plans and the business model, they are working in sub-Saharan Africa. Also there are most of the work to be done, and there are most of the possibility in this space. So in sub-Saharan Africa, there are 600 million that don't have access to electricity, and also 54% of the rural population have no access to clean water, and as well 40% of the fruit and vegetable that are harvested, they go to waste, and 75% of the population have no access to reliable internet. Most of them in some region have no access at all. So the lack of access to energy, it never comes alone. It brings with it a lot of other problems that needs to be addressed. So the place where we start to face all this problem is bringing energy, and this is, as you know, is the SDG 7, and this is the aim of Alliance for Rural Electrification, and most of the company and the member of the association, they all work in different ways towards this goal. So rural electrification is, in fact, the process of bringing electrical power to rural areas where there is no access to electricity. In the last year, a lot of progress has been done. In 2017, we had 1 billion of people in the world without access to electricity. Now it's somewhere about 800 million. And there are some countries that are doing much better than others. For example, India is doing really huge progress in this sense. But despite those significant steps, there are many other countries that are not moving at all, and there are some of those population that are not benefiting in any ways of those progress that we have mentioned. So we believe that the solution to face this problem is through decentralized solution, at least for the most part, because this is the most cost-effective way to bring power where is needed. There are several ways, obviously, to bring energy, and the most let's say famous up to now is a power grid extension. And this is how the Western country has been electrified, and it obviously require huge investment and that are not sustainable in the extent that is needed to power all these people. So grid extension, solar home system, and mini grid. Those are the three most common way and solution to the problem of lack of energy. So we mostly concentrate as Alliance for Rural Electrification for mini grids. And a mini grid can be defined as a set of electricity generator, a power plant with energy storage, and a conversion system that is connected to a local grid. So it is exactly as a grid, but it is isolated and it's small. And
Claudio, just a quick question. Do you prefer for us to hold our questions for the end of your presentation, or do you prefer for us to do it interactively and stop you and ask questions?
I would prefer to do it at the end, because I'm going to be very quick. Actually, it will not last too long.
Very good. So, thank you.
No, thanks to you. Okay, so the first way how to electrify the remote area that we mentioned is mini grid. Then the power grid extension, we are not going to talk about it here. And then the solar home system. Solar home system are a small off-grid power system that are able to power smaller load, typically houses or little commercial activity, but normally small load. While the mini grids, they are much more powerful and they can reach, the average is between 100 to 150 kilowatt of power generation, but they can easily reach even 500 kilowatt or 1 megawatt. So they're able to power even small industrial facility. So this is what is seen here below is what a mini grid looks like. And this is taken from a famous mini grid developer, which is named Winch Energy. It's one of the biggest in Africa at the moment. So you have the generation plant and the storage system and distribution. Then you have the distribution network that it's normally rather small. Rather small means that it goes for several kilometers, and is most of the time it's a low voltage or medium voltage at the maximum. and the distribution network brings obviously the electricity around all the village area. Then you have a metering system for the end user and the payment system, and then you have the consumers that are private, but also businesses, social institutions. So we mentioned it before that bringing electricity, it's only it's just the first step that brings with it a lot of other effect, positive effect. Those effects are defined here in this graph, also taken for another mini-grid developer, Africa Green Tech. And this graph, it shows that from the electricity, many other positive consequences are immediately coming. Those consequences are also the needs that the mini-grids have in order to succeed from an economical point of view. Because the mini-grid, it's basically, most of the time, it's a private business, which is owned from developers, from private developers, which are investing the money in this venture, and they count on the sale of electricity or the sale of other services. Before they decide where to place the mini-grid, they do feasibility studies, and they try to understand what is the load and what is the demand of electricity at that time, but mostly in the future. Growing the demand in the future means for them being able to deploy economical development. So as much they will be good to grow the economy of those areas, and the more chances they have to get more revenues and have a profitable business. So one of the things that immediately are one of the consequences of the arrival of electricity, you can imagine, that is water purification. This is one of the main productive use that is done where there is no access to clean water. Thanks to the electricity and the technologies that are now available, you can purify the water, and most of the time the same developer, they are able to sell water as a services. So they do business not only with the electricity but with the water, and this brings a consistent positive impact in the society and in the economy. The other immediate impact is on the cooling system. You can imagine in the sub-Saharan Africa, or for example in the Sahel, where they grow the vegetable, the product that they can grow, they cannot store it, and they cannot maintain it and sell it and market them, but they have to consume it very quickly. When the electricity arrives, they are able to obviously to store them in cool storage, so an entire economy can pick up, and the consequences are the many. Other very nice example are the mini grid that are being installed in the lakes in Africa, or the Lake Victoria, for example. There are a lot of fishing communities. There is a fishing industry, and when the electricity arrives, they can produce ice. They can store the fish. They can market the fish, and the local economies, they literally boom. So regarding the market of the mini-grid, is predicted that by Bloomberg and Sustainable Energy for All, that the market will be worth 128 billion by 2030. So it's starting to be a very important things, and we see this happening every day. We see now a lot of big actors believing in this market and starting to invest. In the world, there are 7,100 mini-grid projects in March 2020, and 5,500 of those projects are operational, and 63% of them are solar powered. Most of them are in Asia, and the rest is in Africa, and only a few in the rest of the world. Rural electrification market is booming thanks to activity that are taken by the local government, that they are sometime successfully implementing regulatory framework, so a set of rules and laws that allows to the private investor to operate and sell electricity on utility on an utility business model with serenity, and where this happen, they are able to attract a lot of them. So there are many really in these days, and many other will come in the next year. There are some very good examples. I can mention Nigeria, for example. They have been able to implement very quickly a very effective regulatory framework, and they have been able to attract a lot of mini-grid developers. Many of them are also from the US, from the United States. And the nice things of some of those programs is that within the same public tender, call for proposal, they offer the license for the villages, and also they offer the grants that are coming normally from the World Bank, and this is very attractive for the developer, because with one effort they can get a very good and important help, which can be up to 50% of the capex of the investment needed, and as well with the same effort they get the licenses to operate 15 or 20 years. So there are many of these programs ongoing, and the fact that they are sometimes successful, it's very positive, and it can be hopefully replicated as much as possible. So this is all the a curve of all the programs are implemented around the world. And this said, the market is good, and it's growing a lot, but all these efforts are definitely not enough to reach SDG 7. It's almost impossible at this pace to reach the universal energy access. So these data that I have here, they are taken from the Sustainable Energy for All website. Sustainable Energy for All is the United Nations initiative that promotes the reach of SDG 7. So they estimate that 45 billions would need to be disbursed each year between 2020 and 2030 to be able to finance all the projects that would allow to reach the energy access. And this is unlikely to happen. So the main problems are two. The first one is that there is no sufficient volumes of committed finance, and the second one, it's even more dangerous, is that even when this finance is committed, most of the time it's very difficult to translate it into real project, to deploy that finance, unfortunately, for several reasons. So the reality is that for Sustainable Energy for All is that even if the world, all the state of the world will commit for that finance to be placed there for the reach of SDG 7, the implementation would never be possible. So the reason are most of the time these four: lack of access to local finance, the difficulty of the local administration to coordinate the projects. Another one is the willing of taking risk, which is often not there. It's very difficult to take the first risk. Most of the people that place finance or the institution, they don't want to be first, in few words. So they want to come after when the project are already de-risked, and there is at least some first loss capital in the project, which is something that is quite difficult. And the fourth issue is the policy framework and regulation that are absolutely needed to be in place in the country where we want the private sector to go and do the project with private money. Still, most of the time are not there, even if there are some very good examples, like the one that I mentioned before, Nigeria, Togo, Benin, Zambia, and even in other countries, in Haiti as well. But most of the country, they don't have this policy framework. So when a developer goes in those countries, they really take big risk to operate there, because you are not sure how what will happen to your investment and to your plant, to your business. So these are not very nice news. It's the truth, but even I believe that even if we will not be able to deliver power to all by 2030, then absolutely we have to do everything that we can to bring power to most people as possible. So this bad news will not change our purpose and our will. Why? Because our goal is to have impact. And the very nice things that I can see is that in this market, there are most of the people that work for NGO, for private company, entrepreneur, worker, student. Most of them, they are in this space because this space allows them to deliver impact, to change the life of the people. So today, I want to try to convince some of the students that are there that it's worth to come and try and have a look what it looks like to start a career in this space. So those are my contacts, and I'm very happy to be reached out by email by everyone who want to speak about this matter.
Well, thank you very much, Claudio. And we'll open it up for questions. If you can't, like somebody has just written me some 3 questions saying their mic is not working, you can just post your question in the chat room and we'll be able to access that. So let's entertain some questions.
I have a question for you, Claudio. In one of your first slides of your presentation, you were comparing mini grids to solar home systems or to grid extensions. And you were saying that one of the problems with solar home systems is that they generate DC electricity, and then you would have to convert it. And that, of course, creates cost, inconvenience, and so that keeps their development down. Whereas microgrids, I understand implicitly, I believe that you want to say microgrids don't have, mini microgrids don't have, mini grids don't have that problem. But my question to you is, does that mean that mini grids are actually delivering AC power or DC power? If they are solar powered and they are delivering AC electricity, that means that they are also using inverters. And so the cost of the inverter would be an issue for them as well. And then that's my first question for you. My second question is, where do you find the suppliers and the designers for your mini grids? Do you always use the same providers, or do you use different? Do you have a pool of providers? And how do you go about choosing the right equipment?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Stefano, for this question. Definitely the mini grids, all of them, up to now, they generate AC power. And well, this happened for obvious reason. If you have to bring the power a little bit far away, you need AC power at a certain voltage to go far away. So most of the time they are 220 or 380 distribution grids, or some other time they arrive up to medium voltage, 11 kilovolt. So they can get more far away. Definitely in the conversion between the batteries and the AC, and even the conversion between the solar panel and the battery, then you have some losses. But you can say that for the mini grid, those losses are less because they are concentrated in only one system, and the bigger system are industrial. They have a much higher quality, so the losses are less. At the same time, I have to say that one of the other very nice things, since this market is really picking up, then there are a lot of technological advances, studies and research and development. So now there are even there is a company from Germany which is founded by some very young smart guys, and they are doing an hybrid between solar home system and the mini grid. So they are actually they have this solar home system which are a little bit bigger, and they are all interconnected together through a DC grid. So it's a new thing, but let's see what they will be able to do. And the solar home system, if you know, those are small system like with 200 watt solar panel, 300, 500, something like that. And if you use them to convert the power, then obviously you have big losses. But on the other hand, those devices are very useful because when you arrive in villages, it's unlikely that all the population is concentrated. And the mini grid developer, they very well known where it's worth to bring the power or not to customers. So if the customer is too far away from the grid or from the main line of the grid, then it's going to be more expensive than what they can get. Perhaps they bring the power anyway, but if they have a solar home system available, then those remote customers are served with the solar home system. Or there are some areas where it's not worth to bring.
I can't hear you anymore, Claudio. Something happened to the audio.
Yeah, looks like he's frozen.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
yes.
I can hear you now.
Thank you.
Okay. So I was saying that there are many cases where the customer they have to be served with the solar home system. I can think about Zambia, for example. There are a lot of villages that are very spread. They are not concentrated, and in those cases, it's very difficult to install a mini grid at a reasonable price.
Sure.
But the nice thing is that now they are being integrated. There are already some business model and also some technology that integrates the mini grid with the solar home system. So within the same business model, the developer have both. So they also have tools that integrate customer served from a power line and customer served from a solar home system. And this has been integrated. This is also another innovation that is going to be, that is there. And then you mentioned the provider and the quality of the product.
Yes.
Where there are all kind of quality and all kind of product, expensive, non-expensive, and every developer has his own strategies. There are some developers that they also own their own technology and they integrate and design their system by themselves. There are other developers that call themselves technology agnostic. That's a term that is quite, and this means that whatever what they don't care, they just think about the uptime and the price of their kilowatt hour. So they normally stay this technology agnostic. They go with an EPC, which is a company that take care of procuring the material, of integrating, assembling, installing the plant, and they sell everything to the. There are different philosophy there, and I can see that the pricing now are going very, very down, and the Chinese company are obviously these days they are taking a lot of space. They even have, there is a company even have an office here in Italy, in Bologna, and they are really coming in the market very strongly. They can sell the containerized solution at the price that I could not even buy the parts, the components. So this is also a signal of the market that is scaling up.
Hey, another quick question is, do you see a future for DC-based microgrids or mini grids, or do you think that that train has left the station, is not coming back?
Well, I see. I don't know the topic technically very well. To be honest, I see difficult to bring at this stage a large amount of power with DC. I cannot see a company that are developing this kind of converter, this kind of technology. It should be, I think, an entirely new industry and industrialization. This is for the big loads. For the small loads, that is possible. The company that I mentioned before is it's transferring the power between a device to the other and can go even a few hundred meters. I think with 70, 80 volt DC power. And this way they can make like a neural network. It's something very interesting, and I'm looking forward to see what they will be able to do with this concept. The technology, it's obvious, nothing special, but the concept and the application is very interesting. They are now installing 2 or 3 villages, I believe, in Africa.
Thank you.
I have a question for you from Larry. Actually, there are 3 questions. The first question involves decentralization and centralization of, electric grids. And he says, do you have a rough sense of the difference in cost between delivering a kilowatt hour on site versus the US type, where you are using landlines to reach your areas? That's first question. The second is, does this suggest other methods in the US as based on your answer, whether we should continue with the way we are doing things or whether there is room for us to improve? And lastly, he asks, as you look at the 3 main ways to power off-grid, is the US model of centralized the best and most efficient way of doing it? Or are we in the US in a transition as well? Loaded question.
Okay, the last question, to be honest, I don't know that much about the US, so I cannot answer to the third question. Regarding the first one, well, the price for the kilowatt hour, it very much depends from where the application is. There is not a price that can apply for everywhere. For example, if you're speaking about the power lines, that it very much depends on where you have to bring this power. If you have to do 1,000 kilometers with a power line, that you will have a cost. If you have to extend a power line to reach a village at 5 kilometers, then you have another cost. And it's also bound to many other factors, and it's very difficult to give you an answer. But in Africa, in rural areas, you can be sure that most of the time it's much cheaper to sell electricity through the mini grids. And the price of the electricity can go from 15 dollar cent up to 50 and 60, depending on those many factors. What is sure is that those pricings are going to be lower in the next years due to the reduction or due to the drop in the cost of the technologies. Also, there is a very important factor, and for which we are fighting as Alliance for Electrification, not only but also all the other associations in the market, and this is that the electricity brought from the power lines and the build of the power lines itself, it's heavily subsidized. So the tariff are not reflecting the reality. While for rural electrification, the tariff that are in the mini grid space, the tariff of the kilowatt hour provided by mini grids is not subsidized. Well, there are several type of help and subsidies at other level, but definitely it's far away from what is happening for the power lines. But this is going to change in the next year. We trust on that. And the second question, I was not able to get it, Luca.
Okay, let me go back and read it. The second question was whether what you, and I think you've pretty much answered it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I do have another question coming from Damon Kelly. He is interested in the 54% of the people without access to water and the fact that 40% of the production goes to waste. And he asks, how does electricity help improve these two shortcomings?
Well, there are technologies that we know very well that are used to address those problems. If you have desalinated, if you have salted water, then you have to use reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis.
Oh no.
I think he froze again.
Yeah, that's not good.
For water, for reverse osmosis, but also for the many other technology that allows to purify the water and make it drinkable. Without electricity, simply you cannot do it. And the very interesting things is that all in the company that are deploying this technology are now looking into different business model. In the water sector is water as a service. So they're not selling the technology, but they are looking to deploy their asset, their plants, and sell the water like somebody else sells the electricity. For the harvest, for the vegetable, you need fridge, you need refrigeration system, and to power them, you need cheap energy. You cannot power them with a diesel generator, even though this is done in many places, but it does not make sense. There are in some places they power the refrigerator. The cooling system with diesel and even in the desert, and this is crazy expensive. Now there are a lot of technology advance. Many companies are studying different way how to do to cool down, to make the cool with a more efficient solution. And even in this case, there are some business models that are now taking the field, which is cooling as a service, and this is an immense market, cooling as a service, which is coming together with the electricity. Nothing is possible without electricity. Think about not only the vegetable, think about the medicine, the vaccines in rural areas. You cannot store them without electricity. So everything comes from the electricity. When the electricity arrives, those places, they change face.
Excellent. I have one question from Skylar. And Skylar says he knows that I don't know if it's a sure he. I'm sure that geography plays a role in this, but have you thought of windmills, water turbines, etc., as other means of green energy? Would they be more cost effective?
Well, yeah, the windmills, I have thought about it. I know them very well, and I can tell you that the small green mill at this stage, unless you have a crazy wind resource available, they are not. They cannot be compared to solar power. Solar power, it's very, very cheap. The price of the solar panel can be now down to 22 cents per watt. And it's just a fraction from what it was 5 or 6 years ago. The wind turbine, they have moving parts, so you have a lot of cost of maintenance with all the mechanics going around. And even if you have wind, then you have a lot of trouble with the maintenance, and they are expensive. So they make the energy more expensive. While the solar panel, you put them there, and if they are of good quality, you just need to clean them, and that's it. But a very cheap source of power, if there is a water resource, it's the hydropower. In Africa, there is a lot of hydro in equatorial region, in Congo, in Tanzania. There are many even hydro mini grid, and this is normally very cheap power, but most of the time they are coupled with solar system, because the water can be seasonal. So you have a lot of energy during the rain season, but you have less during the other season. But it's very easy to hybridize them and make hydro and solar.
Excellent. The other is pretty much a comment from Scott Carey, and I would like him to make that comment on his own. Scott, would you like to go forward and make that comment?
No worries. Yeah, hi, my name is Scott Carey. I work at the National Renewable Energy Lab here in Golden, Colorado. You were asking about what is going on in the US grid system right now. The Department of Energy is working on a grid modernization program that's trying to make our 80-plus-year-old transmission and distribution system to work with all these new technologies and the additional loads coming on. And so looking to hybridize that with microgrids and distributed energy resources. And there's been a significant amount of work in terms of looking at some remote communities with high energy costs, the ones especially of islands that are shipping in and running on generators, and seeing significant growth there in solar, especially. And the big challenge is making sure that you have solar plus some version of storage or alternative fuel to keep things running when the sun goes down. So it's great to hear, Claudio. It's great to see what you're doing. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. And it's very interesting to see that in the US now you are going for the mini grids, and you are taking the opportunities of this new technology. Here in Italy, if I look at the story of how it was the electrification, at the beginning we had a lot of mini grid more than 100 years ago in the Alps, hydro mini grids, a lot of operators similar to what is happening in Africa. Then those mini grids, they became a lot, and then they made the national grid after that. But it's amazing to see that in the US now you are using the opportunity of the technology of the mini grid to make your distribution system more reliable and resilient. We are not there yet here in Europe.
Wonderful. So any other questions? Well, if there are no questions, I would like to thank the people that have made this possible, such as Ludi and Leslie, Antonio, Sherry Plant Masters, the Dean of the College of, the Anderson College of Business and Computing, for making this possible. And there are other people as well who are involved in this. So I would like us to thank them for doing that.